It started like any other weekend, the kind you think is safe and predictable, our anniversary. I had planned everything down to the last detail. Dinner at that fancy place she loved, a walk along the river afterward, maybe a couple of drinks to toast us. I couldn't shake this weird feeling that something was off, but I brushed it aside. Maybe it was nerves, or just that stupid gut instinct that's always wrong until it's too late. She looked beautiful, as always. Her dress hugged her in all the right places, her hair falling perfectly around her shoulders. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have her. We'd been together for years, through thick and thin, and I'd never doubted her love before. But that night, a flicker of doubt gnawed at me. It was small, almost insignificant, like the faint scent of burnt toast, easy to ignore but persistent enough to bother you. We shared our usual jokes, sipped wine, and laughed over old stories. But I couldn't help but notice how she kept looking at her phone, slipping it into her purse every time I got close. I should have seen the red flags then, but I didn't. Instead, I convinced myself she was just distracted, maybe nervous about the weekend. Still, my stomach clenched every time her eyes flicked to the screen like she was hiding something. Later that night, we stumbled into bed, exhausted but happy. I reached for her hand and she squeezed back, but her palm was clammy. I wanted to believe it was just the wine. As I drifted off, I caught her whispering into her phone just a quick text. She quickly closed it when I looked over. My heart skipped a beat. That's when I knew deep down that something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong. The next morning, I woke up early, craving coffee. When I went into the kitchen, I saw her phone on the counter, screen lit up. I hesitated, then picked it up. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it, not out of curiosity, but because I had to know. Inside, I found messages, not just playful banter, but intimate exchanges, secret meetings planned behind my back. Words like "can't wait to see you" and "tonight's perfect" made my stomach turn into knots. There was also a photo attached, her smiling and close with a guy I knew, my best friend. I stared at the photo, my mind blank. My knees felt weak, like the ground was shifting beneath me. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. I felt the heat rising inside, a mixture of betrayal and fury I'd never experienced before. That's when I knew the truth. She had lied to me for months. Swore she loved me, cried at our anniversary dinner about how much I meant to her, but behind my back she was with him. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I wanted to yell, to scream, but I knew I had to stay calm. I stared at her sleeping figure, her chest rising and falling peacefully. I felt like I was choking on a raw, burning rage. How could she pretend everything was fine? How could she lie so convincingly? And my best friend, my freaking best friend, how could he do this to me? I knew I'd have to confront her, but I also knew I couldn't just blow up and burn everything. I needed a plan, something sharp, something that would hit them where it hurt most without turning me into the villain. I'd been naive, I'd been blind, but no more. The wheels started turning in my mind as I watched her sleep, the taste of betrayal lingering bitter on my tongue. I hadn't decided what to do yet, but I knew I had to act quietly, carefully, and with a vengeance that would make her regret ever trusting him or me. Would she admit it if I asked? Not likely. That's what I had to prepare for. But I wasn't going to be the one left broken. Not this time. I spent the next few days walking around like I'd been punched in the gut every hour. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that damn photo, her smiling, him close enough to kiss. I kept replaying those texts, the secret meetings, the lies she'd told me over and over. The worst part was feeling so powerless. I wanted to storm into her place, scream at her, demand answers, but I knew that wouldn't do any good. If I was going to get justice, I had to think smarter. That's when I started digging deeper. I knew I couldn't just confront her blindly. I needed more proof, undeniable, concrete evidence that I could use for leverage. So I went through her phone again, more carefully this time. I looked for anything I might have missed, a hidden message, a receipt, anything that could tip the scales. I found a few more texts, some deleted but recoverable from the cloud. The language was clear. They were planning the next secret meetup, talking about how they'd sneak around without me suspecting a thing. I also remembered her mentioning her work was keeping her late that week. It struck me as odd. She'd always been honest about her schedule. So I decided to follow her one evening, not in a creepy way, just enough to see where she was going. As I trailed her car, my stomach twisted. She pulled into a secluded parking lot, got out, and went into a nondescript building. My eyes looked around, trying to piece together what was happening. No signs, no obvious signs of a club or bar. Just that quiet, nondescript office building. I felt my fists tighten again. Whatever she was up to, I needed to know. That night, I stayed up late, researching how to catch someone in the act without tipping them off. I bought a cheap GPS tracker, stuck it on her car the next morning, and waited. For the next couple of days, I watched her movements, noting every shift in her routine and every pattern that seemed suspicious. The tracker told me she visited that same building at odd hours, sometimes twice in the same day. They weren't just working late. She was meeting him, no doubt about it. One evening, as I sat in my apartment with the tracker running, I felt my chest tighten. I was close enough now. I had enough to make her confront the reality, but I wasn't ready to do that yet. I wanted to have everything lined up, proof, a plan, a way to punish her that would leave her no room to deny. I knew I had to strike hard but clean. My mind raced, trying to think of the perfect move. And then I remembered something I'd seen in her purse. A small, folded piece of paper that she kept hidden, probably a backup for her secret meetings. I found it when I was cleaning up, and I couldn't believe my luck. It was a hotel reservation in her name, booked for a weekend just a few days from now. She was planning to leave to meet him somewhere private. That was the final piece I needed. The plan started forming in my head. I'd wait until she left for that weekend, then I'd go to her place, gather everything I could find, and leave her a little gift, something that would make her realize I knew everything. I wasn't planning to confront her just yet. I wanted her to feel the weight of betrayal, to know she had no way out. I was ready for the explosion, and it was coming soon. I could feel my palms getting sweaty thinking about it. She'd swore she loved me, but her actions painted a different picture. It's funny how love can turn into a cage and eventually a weapon. I was finally ready to take back what was mine, my dignity, my trust, my life. I just had to wait a few more days. The hardest part was keeping calm, pretending everything was normal. Inside, I was boiling, and I knew she'd pay for this one way or another. The days felt like they dragged on, each one worse than the last. Every time I saw her, I could feel her eyes flicker with something, guilt, maybe, or just that nervous energy when someone's hiding something. I kept my face blank, my voice steady, but inside I was a storm. That night I sat alone, staring at the pile of evidence I'd gathered, her secret texts, the hotel reservation, the GPS logs. It all clicked into place, and I knew I had everything I needed. The plan was simple but cruel. I'd wait until she left for her weekend rendezvous, then break into her house, find the messages and proof I needed, and leave her something that would burn her from the inside out. I wasn't interested in violence or anything like that. I just wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. I wanted her to realize she'd crossed a line, and I'd be the one to make her regret it. I spent the next couple of days getting ready. Sneaking into her house wasn't easy, but I knew her routines, her habits. I timed everything so I wouldn't get caught. That night I parked a few blocks away, watched her unlock her door, and slipped inside when I was sure she was gone. It was surreal walking through her home, feeling like I'd entered a war zone I didn't even know we were fighting. I found her laptop in the bedroom and quickly plugged in my USB drive. I already knew what I was looking for, the chat logs, the messages confirming the affair. I found them easily. They were buried in a hidden folder, but I'd already done the digging. Her words were like knives, intimate, raw, revealing a side of her I never knew. While I was there, I spotted the hotel reservation tucked in a drawer. I grabbed it, then looked around for anything else that might be useful. A few photos, a couple of receipts for the local restaurant they'd met at. I took everything I could carry without making noise. As I was about to leave, I noticed a small, folded note on her bedside table. I hesitated for a second, then unfolded it. It was a handwritten note from her, just a few words. "Remember, it's just a weekend. Everything will be fine." That line made my stomach churn. She was already planning to go, already planning to hide her lies behind some bullshit excuse. Before I slipped out, I grabbed her phone from the charger. I knew there was more evidence in her messages. I took a quick glance, enough to confirm what I already knew. Then I turned off her phone, slipped it into my pocket, and ghosted out of her place. The entire night I felt like I was buzzing, part adrenaline, part cold fury. Back in my apartment, I spread out everything I'd collected. The chat logs, the hotel reservation, her phone. I sat there, staring at it all, feeling the weight of what I'd done. I finally saw the full picture, the lies, the betrayal, the sham of a marriage that was already dead. She thought she could cheat and get away with it, but I was done playing nice. The next step was crucial. I wasn't just going to confront her and hope for the best. I had to make sure she'd get the message loud and clear. I drafted a message on her phone, something cold and direct, making sure she understood I knew everything. It read, "Meet me at our place at noon. Don't bother denying it, I have everything now. Your secret's out." I set her phone to send automatically at the time I knew she'd be back, so she'd get the message right away. When the clock hit noon, I was already waiting outside her door. I felt like a stranger, watching her come home, knowing she had no idea what was waiting for her inside. Her face was blank as she entered, and then she saw her phone blinking with the message. Her eyes widened in horror. She froze, trying to pretend she hadn't seen it. I stepped inside, calm but furious. "So," I said, voice low, "you thought you could do this and get away with it?" Her face drained of color. I don't know what you mean." "Oh, come on," I said, voice thick with disgust. "I found your texts, your hotel reservation, your secret meetings. How could you lie to me like that?" Her hands trembled. She looked like she was about to cry, but I wasn't about to give her that satisfaction. I just stared at her, feeling every ounce of betrayal burn in my chest. That was the moment I knew this was the end. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I handed her back her phone, still blinking with the message I'd sent. "You want to pretend it's just a mistake? Fine, but I'm done. You're out of my life, and I want everything back, your keys, your ring, the keys to our house. Take your stuff tonight. I want nothing more to do with you." She was speechless, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. I didn't wait for her to respond. I already knew I was making the right choice. I grabbed her keys from the table, handed her a stack of her things, and walked out the door, feeling lighter and yet heavier than I had in years. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, finally letting myself breathe. The fury had turned into cold resolve. I knew I'd be okay, and I knew I'd move on, but not before I learned one thing. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who's truly strong. I was finally starting to see my own strength. The silence inside my apartment was deafening after she left. For the first time in years, I felt an odd mix of relief and emptiness. The adrenaline that kept me going during the confrontation had finally worn off. I sat on my couch, staring at the mess of her belongings and the pile of evidence I'd carefully amassed. My hands still trembled, not from fear, but from the rush of emotion I'd suppressed for so long: anger, betrayal, a twisted sense of victory. I knew I'd succeeded, at least in some way. The truth was out, and she knew I knew. But I also realized that this was just the beginning. The real fallout was about to hit, and I had to brace myself for what was coming next. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, trying to steady my nerves. Every sip burned like it was trying to wash away the ache, but nothing could. I spent the next few hours making sure I'd covered my tracks. I deleted the secret files from her laptop, cleared the traces of my visit, and changed the passwords on everything. I didn't want her or anyone else to be able to sneak a peek into my life now. I also made sure her phone was turned off and hidden in a safe spot. If she tried to contact me or deny everything, I wanted to be the one controlling the narrative. Then, I started thinking about the next step, the fallout I'd face when she inevitably confronted me, or when her friends and family found out. I knew she'd spin it somehow, maybe even blame me. But I also knew the truth was out in the open now, and there was no hiding from that. Within a few hours, my phone buzzed. It was her. I stared at the screen, hesitant at first. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part knew I had to be the one to finish this. I took a deep breath, then answered. "Hello," I said, voice cold but steady. Her voice was trembling. "You found out. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please, just listen. Save it." I cut her off. "You swore you loved me. You told me I was everything. And then I find out." You've been sneaking around with my best friend. That's not just cheating, that's a full-on betrayal. I was stupid, she whispered. I was confused. It meant nothing, I swear. Nothing. I snapped. That's a joke. You don't get to call it nothing when you're sneaking into hotels, hiding texts, planning secret meetings. You lied to my face for months. Do you even realize how much that hurts? There was silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, uneven and shaky. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and disgust. I'd made my point and I wasn't going to let her worm her way out. You're right, she finally rasped. I messed up, I'm sorry, can we talk, please? No, I said sharply. There's nothing left to say. You chose him over me, over everything we had. I want you gone, don't call me again. I hung up, feeling a strange calm settle over me. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I'd gotten everything I wanted, proof, closure, and the knowledge that I was finally free from her lies. But I knew her well enough to understand she wouldn't go quietly. The damage was done and I expected her to try and spin it to manipulate the story. That's why I'd already prepared something for her. The next day I printed out the chat logs, the hotel reservation, and a copy of the photos. I went to her workplace and left a sealed envelope with her manager. Inside was a note. For your eyes only. This explains everything. I watched her face turn white when she saw it. That was the moment I realized I'd crossed a point of no return. I didn't need to say anything. Her reaction said it all. The truth was out and there was no going back. Whatever she thought she was hiding, I'd made sure everyone knew, her coworkers, her friends, her family. She'd have to face the consequences, and I was determined she'd never lie to me again. Looking back, I realized I wasn't just trying to hurt her. I was finally standing up for myself. The betrayal had stripped me raw, but it also awakened something in me. I won't lie, it's going to hurt for a long time, but I also learned that sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out the poison completely, and I'd been poisoned enough. I'll never forget the feeling of finally closing that chapter. It was like ripping off a bandage you've been afraid to pull. It hurt, but it needed to happen. And honestly, I feel a strange sense of peace. Now I just need to focus on rebuilding without her, without him, and without the lies that nearly broke me. The fallout came faster than I expected. Within a day, her phone was flooded with calls from her friends, her family, mutual acquaintances. I stayed quiet, watching it all unfold from afar. Honestly, I was relieved. She'd always been good at spinning stories, twisting facts to make herself look like the victim. But now she had nothing left to hide. The evidence spoke volumes, and I wasn't about to step into that mess. Her sister called, voice trembling. Did you know about this? I can't believe she'd do this, not to you. I kept my reply neutral even though inside I was raging. She lied. I found everything. It's over now. That was enough to make her silent on the other end, the shock written all over her voice. She started attacking herself, blaming her own stupidity. I was stupid, I should have told you, I don't know what I was thinking. But I wasn't buying her tears anymore. For once I saw her as she truly was, a woman capable of betrayal, hiding behind her own lies. Meanwhile, her social media started filling up with comments. Friends and family saw the evidence I left for everyone. Some were angry, some disappointed. A few reached out to me privately, offering support, telling me I deserved better. I read those messages but didn't respond. I was done explaining myself. But the real test came when she tried to spin her story. She called me that evening, begging, crying, pleading to talk. I didn't pick up. Instead, I sent her a simple message. You lied, you cheated, and you lost my trust. I don't want to hear your voice again. Leave me alone. That was the final nail. She responded with a string of frantic texts trying to distort the truth. It's not what it looks like. I was confused. We're over, I get it. But please, just one chance to explain. I ignored her. I knew her game. She was trying to guilt me back, make me question everything. But I had already made my decision. The next few days were a blur of cleanup. I handed over the keys, packed my things, and moved out of our shared space. I changed my phone number, blocked her on social media. The house that once echoed with love now felt hollow, like a ghost town where I was only a visitor. It was the end of a chapter I never wanted to open in the first place. But even as I cleared out her belongings and turned the page, I couldn't help but reflect. I'd been naive, trusting her blindly. I'd allowed her to slip past my defenses, convinced she was the one. Now I saw her for what she really was, a betrayer, a liar, someone I was better off without. In the quiet aftermath, I realized I'd learned something vital. Trust is fragile. Once broken, it's almost impossible to fix. But sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out the infection before it spreads. That's what I'd done. I'd cut her out of my life completely and honestly. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but also the best, because now I could finally start to rebuild. Without her, without the lies, without the betrayal. Looking back, I can say with certainty, no matter how much it hurts, sometimes you have to let go for your own peace. And that's what I did. I handed over the keys, left her behind, and stepped into whatever was next. The past is done. The future is mine now. The days after I moved out felt surreal. It was like waking up from a nightmare I'd been living in for too long. The silence in my apartment now was peaceful, almost comforting. I'd spent so much time obsessing over her betrayal, over the lies she'd spun, that I'd almost forgotten how to breathe without the weight of it all pressing down. Now, I finally felt like I could breathe again, even if I knew the pain wouldn't disappear overnight. I threw myself into sorting everything out, taking control of my life again. I handed over the keys, watched her drive away for good, and closed the chapter on what could have been a nightmare. House was silent, but that silence was filled with an odd sense of relief I hadn't felt in ages. No more secrets, no more lies, no more pretending everything was okay. The first thing I did was block her on every platform, erase her number, and delete those haunting messages. I needed a clean break, a fresh start. I also went to my bank and changed my passwords, just in case she'd try to reach out or manipulate the situation. I owed her nothing anymore, not trust, not explanations, not regrets. I sat down that evening, glass of whiskey in hand, and looked around the empty apartment. It was a shell of what it used to be, but that shell was mine now. I'd reclaimed what she tried to steal from me, my dignity, my peace, my future. The betrayal had almost broken me, but I'd turned that pain into a wake-up call. I realized I'd been too blind to see her true colors, but I wasn't going to let her define me anymore. When I finally spoke to friends about it, I kept it straightforward. No dramatics, no tears, just the facts. She lied, she cheated, and I cut her loose. It hurts, but I'm better off without that baggage. Their support was overwhelming. Some told me to file legal stuff, others just listened. Either way, I knew I'd come out stronger. In time, I started focusing on myself. I picked up old hobbies I'd abandoned, reconnected with people I'd neglected, and even started dating again, slowly, cautiously. It's funny how betrayal can make you appreciate the simple things. Honest conversations, genuine laughter, someone who respects your boundaries. I learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's hard to rebuild, but it's possible, especially when you're willing to walk away from the poison. Looking back, I realized that what I went through changed me. I learned not to be naive about love, not to ignore warning signs, and most importantly, not to stay in a situation where I wasn't valued. She thought she could get away with her lies, but she underestimated the cost. The moment I found out, I took my power back. That was the turning point, the moment I stopped being a victim and started being the man I wanted to be. So here's the truth I want to share. If you're ever in a situation like this, don't wait, react. Gather your evidence, stand tall, and take control. Because in the end, the betrayal will hurt, but letting it define you, that hurts even more. Trust your instincts, protect your heart, and never forget you deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not who they want you to be. And the best revenge, living well, moving on, making sure they see that you're stronger without them. I've done that, and I'm finally at peace.